career and technical education keeps kids in school. Our graduation rates nationally and statewide and locally typically exceed the graduation rates that you would see for
10%.
non-CT. Yeah, it's significant engagement. So we have a lot of those statistics.
Welcome to another episode of the Amigo Cartcast. We have a fantastic conversation today that we had the pleasure of joining a few guests.
It's been a bit. Where have you been?
It's been summer. We've been busy.
You're right. You were on vacation, weren't you? I know it.
You were the one on vacation in Florida. Here we are. We're back, and we're excited to share this episode with you. And Scott, why don't you share with our listeners kind of how this episode, how it came to be?
So what's funny is when we heard the content was coming, I was like, how is this going to relate to what we do? Mm-hmm. But you know what's funny is when we are on the road quite a bit, when you visit locations, businesses, manufacturing, warehouses, whatever, the biggest common thing is help wanted is out front, right?
Always.
So in the case,
now hiring.
Oh
yes,
my gosh, yeah, we've got that big sign that whips in the wind, right?
Yep.
But I'm just saying, so here we're going into places and trying to promote products, but what's funny is they're looking for people, and that kind of helps us with our product line to go, hey, you know what? We might be able to improve employee satisfaction. We may be able to improve efficiency. So there's just a couple things. So this today is pretty gosh darn cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of just misconception all around of employment at a manufacturer. So we've kind of talked about that a little bit, but the conversation that we had is much broader than that. We get to hear from the experts in the field of how are they taking that feedback from the community to be able to help employers, whether it be manufacturing or other areas. So it's honestly probably one of my favorite conversations that we had with the Amigo Cartcast.
It's really fun. You know, I'm a sales guy, right? So I'm thinking, what are we selling? But honestly,
we're having conversation.
We're not today, darn it. But here's the other thing, though. I think the cool thing about it is it has to do with our youth, right? And what I learned today was that you might start teaching fourth graders, third graders, whatever, about whatever's out there. And I never thought that. In third grade, I was looking for recess.
Well, I don't think you're the only one. You know, I think that's
I agree.
A lot of people are still in that boat. So hopefully this conversation can help enlighten our listeners. And well, I think without further ado, let's go ahead and take a listen to our conversation.
I am ready.
All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for our discussion. We're very excited about today's conversation in this roundtable discussion group, specifically around manufacturing recruitment and how career and technical education programs are getting students geared up for jobs in manufacturing.
We are expanding horizons with these podcasts, aren't we?
We are.
This is exciting.
This is, and
They're experts.
They are the experts. We are bringing the experts in finally. It's a topic that we've discussed a little bit, non-experts here, and now we thought, let's bring the experts in.
We're not experts.
No, not at all. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our team that we have here for our roundtable discussion, starting with Geno.
Good morning. I'm excited to be here, so thank you for having me. My name is Geno. I currently serve as the Workforce Development Specialist with Hemlock Semiconductor, but my previous role was in education. I served, 30 years in education with 21 years in career and technical education, which is essentially workforce development that starts at the secondary level. Most recently as Executive Director of Career and Technical Education for Saginaw County with the ISD here. And so at Hemlock Semiconductor, my role is really similar. We focus on creating talent pipelines and developing programs and initiatives to align with our workforce needs, both internally and externally, including registered apprenticeship programs. So I'm excited to be here today to kind of share a little bit about what that looks like.
This is huge. This is why we brought in the experts, right? We're already starting off good. No, it's fantastic. So to follow that up, we also have Josh Little.
Good morning, everybody. I'm also excited to be here. My name is Josh Little. I am the Director of Career and Technical Education for Bay and Arenac County. I've been in career and technical education for a little over 10 years. Previously, I was the principal and CTE director at the Saginaw Career Complex, where Jenny and I started a lot of initiatives together. I've been in education for over 23 years, and we spend a lot of time talking about talent development, right? Our main goal is to make sure that not only students find their passion, but we connect business and education together to build talent pools so our economy and our regions can grow and our businesses can grow and our families can stay in our regions and build our schools up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We appreciate all of that. And I'm so excited to dive in. But before we do, we have a repeat guest, our very own Tim Eastep here with us.
I mean, is this the third time?
Third time.
Well,
He is special,
and we're
I'm excited to be here too, but I'm here every day. So
and we appreciate that.
yeah, I hope so. It's a neat conversation today. I am a product of a CTE program. So I started out as a mechanic for a ton of years, for almost 10 years, but I came out of the Semiconductor Complex automotive program, which after 10 years of being a professional mechanic, I actually returned to teach, where Jordan Teamy was actually one of my students, which is super fun. And then I left there to go next year as an engineering manager for over 16 years, including 4.5 years overseas, international, which was really neat. And then I got to come join Amigo in January 23, and here I am. So.
And we're so happy to have you.
We are. We joke a lot, but this guy, he's top shelf. I mean, it just
And can reach the top shelf.
I can, very easily. Easier than most. Yeah.
He's tall, by the way.
Yes. For those who don't know, he's tall. All right, well, welcome. We do appreciate this, and we're, like I said, very much a roundtable discussion. We are not the experts, but we are excited to learn from the experts. So I think before we dive in, I know, so we throw out that term CTE, but I would love to hear from one of you that have obviously worked in that space. First of all, what that means, and how did you find your passion there? Because it is very much of a unique setting.
Well, I'll go. Career and technical education is really, it's the blend of business. It's kind of the intersection of business and industry with education, both secondary and post-secondary education. I always like to say it's where workforce development begins. So these programs are aligned to business and industry needs. They are served by an advisory committee made up of business and industry professionals that help to guide curriculum and training. And the best programs have business and industry investment in those programs. So, for example, you might have industry partners that come into the classroom and teach segments of curriculum or donate equipment or supplies, but they're very involved. They might help coach students. And then they take those students for work-based learning. You know, they have a hand in the training, right? And then eventually they can potentially hire them. But CTE students, they earn college credit, they earn high school graduation credit, they earn industry level certifications, and they have the on-the-job experience where they can hone their professional skills. We hear like soft skill gaps all of the time, right? And so this gives them an opportunity to practice those in real time, and employers an opportunity to get to know the students and, you know, where that might fit within their company. The thing about career and technical education is there's also industry-aligned safety training. So from an employer perspective, they're coming to you and they've been exposed to this equipment. They're not coming with zero experience. And because of the level of training that they have received, some of the things that would prevent students under 18 that are not in CT programs from participating or getting hired by companies, those things have waivers and exceptions. So I know we hire a lot of CTE students at our company and engage regularly with them for those purposes.
I almost relate it to a little bit of, you know, you look at the medical field or any profession, the setup that you have to have, and it's specifically to this program, we're just starting it sooner, right? So what is the earliest age, I guess, that you help kind of shape and form? I know you work a lot with high school students, so maybe, Josh, this is a great question for you, too, because you work specifically with high school students. But I think a lot of times, even earlier than that, it's important to start understanding the student's career path and their passion and their skill set and help being able to mentor and guide that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the career and technical education is a consortium model or center-based, and it's for juniors and seniors in high school, but that's where we start to see the outcomes take place. Really, as Jenny had this role for a lot of years that I have now as a SEPA director, our job is much bigger than just making sure that students in the centers are prepared. It's more about career awareness and career development throughout our region, starting at the earliest possible ages we can. You mentioned, you know, how did you find your passion in CTE? I was in general education for a long time, and when I came over to career and technical education, the whole process just makes sense. If you think about, sitting in a math class in ninth grade and you're wondering, well, why am I doing this? Every day you're in a career and technical education classroom, you're connected with a problem from industry, and you're doing the work, and you're doing it at a higher level than you really are in a general education classroom. But the programs that we offer now, between our advanced medical programs and our engineering programs, advanced manufacturing, all over the career cluster, the programs we offer, the students are just learning at such a high rate, right? So to come back, when does it start? We have to start giving information to our students and our parents and our communities early about these opportunities and get them invested into awareness about what's out there. There's so many misconceptions about different jobs, and really there's so many misunderstandings about what jobs are available. Even the job that I'm in, I went to school to be an educator. I had no idea that this was even an option, right?
Yes.
And so just understanding how to get that information out. So we do a lot of work in the elementary, and we actually just got a great grant that we're going to be
Yes.
working on to really build that Tier 1 instruction for our early elementary students by partnering with businesses to bring in and start doing some more project problem-based lesson design. So those lessons sink in and make sense, and then we can bring employers in, we can bring CTE students in, and we can bring more business and industry partners together to start transforming early on education to more of this problem project-based education setting. So students not only are the material sticking with them, but they're also learning about what's out there. And then we can start slowly adding things in 4th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade and until they get to that 9th and 10th grade where they can make a decision, a more informed decision of what they want to do. Because right now we get so many students who are like, I don't know what's out, I don't know what to do. Well, let's start building that process early so we have more support in place so they can just have a more informed decision as they roll into their later parts of high school.
And I think as a parent, I'm just going to real quick say, like, as a parent, we're all, parents here, and that's so, it makes me feel relieved, right? That those resources are started early,
Yeah.
so I don't have to have their future planned out from, kindergarten on. It's like we are instilling that at a young age so that they can find their path later on, which is great.
So,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. So as a father of 5 and having 5 kids all go through school, I had misconceptions, right? And that is, what are the kids going to do when they graduate? And when you do, and Josh, you said something about younger ages. When my kids were in school, and that was probably 10 years ago, let's say, it's almost like you got into 9th grade and then you're trying to hurry up to determine what college you're going to go to, classes, what do you want to do? When you just mentioned, because that was a misconception to me, you just mentioned at younger ages, 100% somebody at 3rd grade, 4th grade. My kids never had that. I mean, I never had that back in the day, but maybe at that point in time, you don't know what you want to do. So at the early age, that makes a ton of sense. I didn't realize that was happening.
Yeah, the earlier the age, the more they're absorbing, right?
Makes
And so
sense.
we're not trying to guide them to a certain path. We're trying to expose them to what is out there, and that's a big difference, right? We're trying to arm them with as much information as possible, and that hasn't been a focus, right? The focus is on curriculum and getting through the curriculum and making sure that we're meeting what we need to meet to pass the test, the things that are required for general education. And those are all great, but we need to find a way to do both. And you can, and that takes a lot of training and a lot of collaboration and partners like Amigo and Hemlock Semiconductor to help us get into those buildings and help us take real world problems and projects and help the teachers see we can align it to your content and we can do a better job of even literature, making sure our libraries have books that are available. We're still covering the same reading concepts and standards, but now we're doing it with a career awareness angle or view. Right.
That's a big deal. And then I had another question for you, Jenny. I did not realize when I heard we were going to do this, and I see the CTE and the technical side, right? I didn't realize that when you said it goes towards college credits. To me, what I thought was, you're either going to do technical or you're going to go to college. But it sounds like you guys have mixed that together.
Yeah, and it's been that way for a very long time.
Really?
In order to have a state-approved CTE program, and the state approval is your quality measure because it's approved by the state of Michigan. There's certain standards that have to be adhered to, and there's a monitoring process in place. Because a lot of times, words just get, it might not mean the same thing if you don't have those standards there. And so being able to make sure that you're developing those programs in alignment with your post-secondary partner, it creates this seamless transition from secondary to post-secondary, resulting in an industry credential. Sometimes an associate degree if you wrap in a CT early middle college.
Really?
Are you familiar with the early middle college concept at all?
I am not.
Let's take a walk down that way. So early middle college, it's been around in Michigan, I think since 1990, and the intent was really to bring students that might be at-risk students on a college campus to expose them to the college life and getting them to think about getting a college degree. And so it has evolved through the years to include many things, and probably about 15 years ago, we had the ability to add a career and technical education early middle college. And that allows students to defer graduation by 1 year so that they could actually complete that associate degree, that there be enough time, or another credential that they might be looking at. The thought behind it is acceleration into high demand areas. So for example, when I was in my previous role and Josh was in his previous role, we worked on several different programs. We had several in healthcare because of such high demand, in education. And so with others that, we had been considering as we move through that. So Delta College, such an important partner, and also Saginaw Valley. I think sometimes when we think of these things, we forget about our university partners as well. And so we worked really hard to make sure that those options were in place for students so they can make those decisions.
So, sorry, Scott. You said something. You're like, well, you either went to technical school or you went there, and so when Jenny was in her role, and it's amazing how much marketing and how much time and energy we put into that messaging, and it's still a stigma of it's a place where you go if you want to do. If you're not really going to a four-year university and we want to expose you to a skill that you can just get right into the industry. And I will tell you, after spending the amount of time I have, the rigor in the curriculum is so significant and so challenging, but the students are meeting that expectation because they're in doing something that they absolutely found a passion and love for. But the amount of college credit, and it depends. You're just giving them options and opportunities. One of the tools that we used were our career trees that we developed. Say, it's fine. If you don't want to go to college and you want to go in there, we will get you right in the industry. But if you want to get a PhD in this same industry, these are all of the careers that we're going to show you how to get in there. And we're sending kids out of our programs with 30, 40, 50 credits through the early middle college. They're completing associate's degrees before they even graduate high school. If you want to look into our medical field, the students, their junior year, have their CNA already. They go in and now they come back their senior year and they're getting their medical assisting, their phlebotomy, all of these different, their EKG certifications. And these are the students that the hospitals want. Our biggest challenge is how do we convince our highest level universities that this rigor is equally as good as that AP biology class? Because I will tell you, in my physical therapy class and in my nursing classes, the content is significantly more challenged because we are partnered with the college. They're using a college textbook already, and they're earning those college degrees. So how are they not equally? And so it's a bigger conversation with our local school districts and our local boards and superintendents to get them to acknowledge and review the work that's being done in career and technical education, so they have the choice to change those transcripts to make sure that the students that still want to attend the highest level of university, they're demonstrating that they have learned at the highest levels. And so we're working towards that, but those opportunities have always been there, but it's been such a challenge. But if you get into those classes, it doesn't matter if it's the machining class, the mechatronics class, the engineering class, the nursing class. Take a look at the content and sit in there for a day, and you will be blown away at the level and the rigor that they're going through. But the students are all meeting it because we're just putting tangible work and content in front of them, and they're excelling.
Can
They're learning it.
Yeah. Can I give you two real-world examples?
Of course.
Those examples would be my children.
Close to home.
Right. Like my daughter, she was a 4.1 GPA high school student. And so it was very difficult for her to get over to the Career Center because the high school wanted to keep her. So luckily she was able to come over for 2 years, develop leadership skills. And she would come home from school and tell me the things that she was doing. I always get emotional, and he knows this. Like, why do I tell these stories? But I think they highlight like what CTE can do. You know, she had opportunities to assist in an open heart surgery where she was next to a cardiologist, and she put her hands in the person's body while they were operating and lifted the human heart so the cardiologist could do a procedure. She had a year-long internship in radiation oncology. She left high school with more than prepared in college. It shaved off a full year of her undergrad. And now she's a doctor.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I know. Always emotional. Then there's my son. You know, complete opposite end of the spectrum. He hated school. You know, this is what it does for kids. And then he found his path with welding, and you know, school was not his thing. So CTE really those high school graduation requirements helped him to get to the finish line. Now he has a good paying job. He finished his advanced welding certificate at Delta College with like a 3.7 GPA. So proud. And he has plans to get his associate degree. He tells me he wants to be a welding engineer. We'll see. But CTE did so much for each of those kids, and you know, complete opposite end of the spectrum. Right. And we have hundreds of stories just like it.
Even when I was teaching, I think the cool thing is you might get a kid where it helps them on the path of that's not the direction I want to go. You know, I mean, as a junior, my son went to SEC into construction, and he's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. You know, and stuff. So the second year he switched to welding, you know, and stuff. And it was the same thing where, you know, you can kind of dabble with it, try it out, see what the industry's really like before you commit to a college level program or get right into a trade to where you're like, man, this is not what I want to do. And you feel like you've wasted time or money or resources or whatever else too. So it gives those kids that opportunity to, you said it very well with your son, there's a lot of kids out there that are hands-on. I was a hands-on kid. I was a decent student, but college was not in the plan for the way I grew up. So I'm like, well, I got to pick a trade and I got to go. So I mean, it gave me an opportunity to apply that real world, see it firsthand, get to go out and try, you know, job shadow these different places and get exposure and then understand, like, is this really the path I want to head on, you know, and it was cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the bottom line is it's not an either or, it can be an and. And students that go through CTE programs are better prepared for college because they've experienced college level training, especially if they're in an early middle college. And they complete because they've had a chance to try careers on. A lot of students go to college, right? But they don't all finish. And that's where our gap is when you look at your statistics. You know, you can make everybody fill out a college application and you hope that they actually go. But at the end of the day, how many actually complete that credential and are working in those industries? Career and technical education keeps kids in school. Our graduation rates nationally and statewide and locally typically exceed the graduation rates that you would see for
10%.
non-CT. Yeah, it's significant engagement. So we have a lot of those statistics.
I think it's a real world application that was always something that interested me too, because it's enough, like as a mechanic, to learn how to fix a car, but I never learned how to interact with a customer. I never learned how to work with other mechanics. I never learned how to, so when you go out on these job shadows and you do that stuff. When I was teaching, we had our board of advisors for my program, and they came in and did interview skills with the kids. They came in and did mock interviews. They had to do a senior project. They still had to do things that, you know, gave them that real world experience. We always tried to put them in either like a small private owned garage and exposure to a dealership. So they kind of saw completely different ways of how that career is applied, you know, and things. And that's the stuff that you don't get, you know, unless you kind of go out and get hired into those places, and really gave, you know, a lot of kids eyes on things that they never, I think, thought possible. You know, I mean, and I know as a dying breed of an auto shop teacher, you know, and stuff, but like when I was at Heritage back in the 90s and stuff, we had an auto shop program.
Yeah.
And they're all gone. I mean, a lot of those programs are gone other than like a wood shop or maybe a metal tech or something like that. But at least it still gives these certain career paths an opportunity to thrive and exist. And you know, we need those people. We need those kids that are interested in that stuff to keep those industries going too.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is that it doesn't have to stay the same, right? Curriculum and education, it changes slightly, but you know, math is math and English is English, and science, the foundation of it all stays the same, and you know, history is not changing, right? With career and technical education, relevance is key, right? And so Jenny mentioned state-approved programming. You can't run a program without input from industry, as we were just talking about, right? And so as things change, your educational delivery has to change. So if things change in industry, it does. And then also the beauty of it is we can open whatever we want as long as the labor market says so. And if there's something in our region that makes sense, that's where you get the best buy-in from everyone, because you have a local business partner that's saying, you know what, we want to grow and expand. This is a huge need for our region. How do we get a talent pool, and how do we get students interested? We teach them about it and see if it's a fit for them. We teach them about it, and once we get enough interest and enough growth and enough support, then we look at, all right, well, what type of program do we need? We work with our local universities, our local colleges, and we develop a post-secondary plan. Say, all right, well, if this company wants this type of workforce, then let's see what we can develop for a pathway to get them certifications or degrees, and then we just slowly build it, and then we can open something that makes sense. We did that with our manufacturing program and our Industry 4.0. It was great, right?
Was
but
fun.
we had a need, and we still do. And so where do we want to grow? And that's the hardest part, to say it's on just, well, that's where they go to school. It's on the education, or do you need a whatever finance? Do you need a bond? Do you need a Yes, it costs money to run programming, but where are we going to get that return and investment? And then that's where those partnerships start to build.
That's everything. We had such great partners. When I first started in Saginaw, I think I was there like 6 months, and so we were hosting a manufacturers meeting at my the place that I worked, and a bunch of the manufacturers said, we're going to go on a field trip. I'm like, well, you better tell my boss, because we were leaving and they weren't telling me where we were going. And we went down to the MMTC Center in Plymouth Canton, and that's where I was introduced to Industry 4.0. And I was so taken with that. They're like, this is coming. And I don't have to tell all you, it's here, it's been here, right? And it was so pivotal in that program, and that inspired the full design of the program at the Career Complex. We put a significant investment in there. And if it wasn't for our manufacturing program saying, this, not that, no, you don't want that, that's dangerous, that lab wouldn't have come into existence. And it's so pivotal, because I look at that lab and the training that they got, and then I look at my role and where I'm at. And when you see that to scale, and you're like the connections, the light bulbs go on, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And now I have the luxury of being able to go back and say, you need more of this kind of training, because we need that, and we want your students to come work for us.
Mm-hmm. So I do think that's a good point. And Tim, I'd be interested on your perspective too, because it's full circle, right?
Yeah.
You talk about all of the groundwork that has been done and what is the impact. And I think the key word that you guys said is you have to have partnership with local organizations, whether it be manufacturing or agriculture. I know you offer so many different programs. You have to have community involvement all around. But it comes full circle then, right? Mm-hmm. And from Amigo's standpoint, or even HSC's standpoint, what are the benefits then investing in these organizations to long-term recruit talent, retain talent? What does that look like?
I think awareness is a big part of it. I mean, it's so growing up and born and raised in Saginaw. I mean, as a kid, either your dad did a job somewhere else or they worked at GM. Mm-hmm. That was kind of it. And it's like, well, what did your dad do at GM? Well, he's on the line. Well, what's that mean? I have no idea. Truly, they didn't. It wasn't even talked about back then, instead of, other than it was a good paying job, and that was it. And now we interview a lot of candidates and stuff here, and we talk about manufacturing. They're like, well, I just like to do stuff with my hands, like to put stuff together. I'm like, yeah, but you want to come see it? And just even showing it to them, and they're like, oh, that's what you guys do? There's not exposure to it. There's not I don't know if there's a negative stigma to it anymore necessarily. There's just not necessarily always the exposure to that job is out there, that job is needed, and I need those people all day, every day to do this. I mean, this country was founded on, building great things, with big companies, and I think we got away from that as we constantly want to offshore things or do whatever else. But here we are in Bridgeport, Michigan, building, 110 Amigos a day by hand with Milwaukee power tools, not automation, not computers and robots, with people. And we need those people. We want those people to be the right people. We want them. We do want mechanical mindset people. We do want people that are good with their hands and like to work with their hands. That's a big part. I want people that enjoy their job, but they have to have that previous exposure that what our need is, what we're looking for. And same things, like, I'm not saying I don't care about math and other things. I obviously do, but I do want people skills. You know,
Yes,
we hire
it's
very
huge.
specific on, you know, our Amigo culture here. I think we're very picky in what we do, and there's a reason for it. And it can't just be a guy that or a gal that's super good at their hands. It's got to be the right fit on the team, that they got the right skills, they know what we're looking for, they hopefully want to grow, things like that. So yeah, it's the partnership with the skill centers, you know, or the local universities, you know, is we can go out and advertise these places what we're looking for. We can be, you know, my son's starting the welding program at Delta next week, so he's actually working construction during the day, doing welding at night. You know, we could be that same source. If they're in the trades wing or any other place over there, we could be their day job while they're doing night classes, something like that. But it applies directly. Stuff they're learning at night, they can practice kind of during the day. And it's a neat partnership that way.
It's also telling
agreed.
those success stories too, like almost like your own journey where you talked about your experience going international and doing those things and how you had your owner in your class, right? Things
right.
like that. Because I think the stigma isn't we're breaking that barrier, but there's still cohorts of parents that have a stigma that the career path isn't good enough because of the outcome. And that's just not true. I mean, some of our most successful people in this community are manufacturers, right? And I think that's the hardest thing. And I remember a couple years ago we had, who was it in our welding program? He was our Skills USA.
Oh, yes, I know exactly who you're talking about.
His name's eluding me right now, but his parents both lived in Midland and they were both doctors, and he was going to SASA and they wanted him to be a doctor, and he wanted to be in the welding program, and they I must have taken 400 phone calls, right? Is this pathway, is this good? Is this class going to be okay? I'm like, it's what his desire and passion is. I'm like, but what is your perception of a welder? And her perception was under the hood in this grimy place and not being successful. And then just talking to the parents over and over and over about that's not it. There's so many opportunities. Your son is a 4.0 student. He wants to go get a 4-year degree and beyond. He wants this to be the foundation of his learning. And he went on to Ferris State. He wanted to be a welding engineer and he wanted to be a welding inspector. And he had his plan written out. And once I brought mom and dad in and I showed them, I'm like, welding inspectors in major cities with this degree, this is what they're making and this is what they're doing. And they're like, well, this is way more than we make. I'm like, yes, I know. I'm like, his path is going to be fine. And so those are the stories where like, how do we share the success stories of the perceived industries that are so-called not as successful as other ones? And I think sharing those stories as much as we can will help guide students even more.
Yeah, I mean, this pipeline is essential to our work at HSC. So I was hired to develop the workforce strategy for our company. And so part of that, a significant part is actually the K-12 part. And so I think there was a general understanding, like, this is really important to do some pipelining, from our schools. And so when I was on the education side, I worked with HSC to develop a youth apprenticeship program. I say youth just because they're in high school. Apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship is registered apprenticeship, no matter what your age, and you can start as young as 16. So we partnered with the trades, and we took 6 students the first year, 1 for each trade, and then there was another, there was 5 trades that we were pipelining to, but we took an extra student because he was so good and highly recommended by his instructor. And so the majority of those students are still there today. We took another cohort last year when I was on HSC side. That pipeline is so imperative, and we're looking at expanding. We're going to be doing a partnership with Arenac into our medical labs area, so that the curriculums can be aligned. Because we have attrition. We have a lot of people in manufacturing that are of retirement age or projected to do so. We have a skills mismatch. So this is such a great opportunity to be able to work directly with our secondary partners and our post-secondary partners. We work very closely with Delta College and Saginaw Valley and many universities as well. But man, to get them before there's bad habits, before they've had work experience, before perceptions can sink in and they think that they don't want to do the thing that maybe they really do because they haven't had that experience. We hire college and high school co-ops. college summer interns. I mean, we're always doing things with students, and we're continuously creating, programs. We have career development materials that we're in the process of finalizing right now. So by occupation. So students, but also adults in the community know what the different roles are and the different things that we hire for and what our starting wages are, because wage transparency is also very important. Students, especially Gen Z right now, and I'm sure the alpha's coming up behind them, they ask questions that maybe we didn't hear 5 years ago. Like, how much am I going to make? Because they were always told, that's a rude question to ask. But they're asking it, and so now I think as employers, we need to answer that. And they're asking things about 401ks and
That's responsible.
benefits. I know, and I'm going, without prompting. I mean, it used to be like pulling teeth. They'd be like, yeah. Do I get to weld? Now it's a very important part of their conversation. And I think probably seeing some of the things that happened during the pandemic and observing some of those struggles, they're thinking about work in a different way. And I think as employers, it's really important that we're responsive to that. But early and often, whatever you can do, we participate in My Career Quest and any other regional activity where we can get in front of students. We push in, we go to career fairs, and we create our own programs where we can potentially bring students on site. And we partner with people like Josh, which is so much fun for me, so we can continue to work with our friends.
You just said something, Jenny, made me think. I wrote student voice down.
Yes.
And you talked about bringing in, and they're asking all these questions now. It gives the employers a lot of opportunity to grow in a way that they haven't thought of. And we try to do this in education a lot, but it's hard to, because you think because you're the expert in the area, but everything is changing so rapidly in every industry. Through those apprenticeships and through other things, like if you bring in someone young who's excited about your company and give them leadership opportunities or voice, you're going to learn something every time. Now, you're not going to take the advice all the time, but you're getting the perspective of our next workforce generation, and they are super, super talented in ways that we're not ready for, and letting them lead in the innovation of what's next is going to be really, really essential for those companies that are willing to be open to that. But you get to, it's a great partnership, because if you bring them on board early, you're grooming them for what you need, but then they want to be there, so allow them to have a voice in what could potentially be next in innovation, because that's what they're all thinking about. They're not this current age gap, Gen Z student, right? They're not thinking about this job right now in front of me for the next 8 hours.
No.
Their mind is still moving forward of next week, next year, 10 years, while they're still doing the job, but they're thinking about why are we doing it this way? How are we doing it this way? It's a whole different type of energy that we're just not used to as employers, and you have to find a way to accept it and let it go, because it'll make your company stronger.
And as employers, talking to young people about what they expect out of work is critical. I was at a summit in Mount Pleasant back in July, and we had an opportunity to have a roundtable with students and hear what they're interested in, for their futures, to be hired, what kind of jobs they're looking for. And it's just super impactful. So it's like, okay, we check this box and this box. We need to do this box and this box. But what great information. Go to the source.
But it can come across wrong if you're not ready for it, right?
Yeah.
It really can. Some employers are stern, like, well, you do want this job or not? And no, they don't care. They don't. They care more about being a part of the discussion than they do the work, right? Because that level of value, and that's been a huge shift over the years.
I think a lot of times we talk CTE, you think hands-on only, automotive, auto body, construction.
It's
so,
everything.
And it's not. And then you think about the CTE programs that are there for that Amigo could sponsor: marketing, manufacturing,
Yes.
welding, machine shop. So we could be job shadowing with these kids that are from the local CTE centers, but there's not a sales program. You guys hit that up maybe. But
Yes, marketing is a sales program.
So, all right, so I got both of them in the room. Yeah. But that's, I think, again, part of it. I think it was always looked at as it's like, well, that's where the kids went that were going to go to construction and learn how to use a bulldozer. And well, that's a small part of it, yes. But it's also got all these other programs that apply to so many different manufacturing companies, because we're not just a machine shop. We're not just a production place or anything else. So the CTE centers can provide kids, with all those different opportunities to us.
Well, think IT, like how
Yeah.
big IT is
Yeah.
in manufacturing, and it's sometimes difficult to place students in business and industry where they're getting a robust experience if they're interested in like cybersecurity. But at the end of the day, like that's how you teach them. That's how you pipeline with them, and they're mature enough to handle it. That's the one thing. Like we vet students before. I say we. Back in the day, I was a we, but now they vet the students before they ever go out on work-based learning. Right? They're trained. They know like what not to do, and that's probably for some people that you might just hire off the street that maybe they don't know that. So the students are being very they're placed with intention.
Yeah, that's such a good point, right? Is the IT, even graphic design, right? Like anything that you want, marketing for your program, website,
Business.
like anything related to your company's growth, there's usually a program for it.
So Josh, going back to what you were saying though, it's not always just telling or educating the companies in the area of what kids are available. It's also teaching those kids what companies are available.
That's right.
Yes.
And stuff. I mean, so Amigo's been here since 1968. And does everybody understand every Amigo that you see in a Walmart and everything's built right here in Bridgeport, Michigan? Because a lot of kids don't, and stuff. My own boys didn't, born and raised in Saginaw. So it's also getting that awareness out. If you're interested in this career path, here's all the ones in the Great Lakes Bay region that have an opportunity that maybe you could go fill, kind of thing. So it's kind of a two-way street
You're
there too.
dead
100%,
right.
100% right,
I mean,
yeah.
HSC's been there since 1961, and we still get the question of we don't really know what you do. So, our career pathway initiative is designed to help educate people when we go to career fairs, so students understand that we don't make semiconductors. We make the hyperpure polysilicon that goes into semiconductors and solar. So those education pieces, so they can make informed career decisions, and also have aligned classes that would help them, decide if they had the aptitude for it and the interest before that they invest.
Yeah, so if you think about it, all right, if I ask everybody, whose job is that to tell them that in the school? So
Yeah.
your students in 6th grade or 7th grade, whose job is it to tell them, or 9th grade for that matter? What would be the first thing that comes to your mind? Who do you think's job would it be at the school?
9th grade, be a counselor.
Counselor. Perfect. That's the answer I was thinking you'd say.
6th grade, Samantha, what would that be? I don't know.
Yeah. So think about high school. If you're hoping to learn more about, you're going to think about your counselor.
Right.
Well, our average counselor per student rate in Michigan is 700 to 1. So who has, and then there's a ton of accountability on the counselors for state testing and other things like that. So that goes back to, we know we need to expose them. How do we do it and who does it? And so that's where with the grant that we're talking about doing and getting that information through curriculum. And so it's not just this one-shot deal. Hey, it's going to be career day today, and you're all going to go in a circle, and they're too busy high-fiving friends and, whatever they're
TikTok,
Yes.
making videos. We're out of class for the day. This is great, right?
They're just
Or-
looking to get the free stuff at the booth.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah,
Don't get me
and then
wrong.
you,
they're looking to
same
get
thing. You
out of
pack,
class.
you pack 10,000 students into the My Career Quest, and
Yeah,
and that event is amazing. It really is.
Yes.
But if there's no other follow through and nothing else,
That's an
do-
event.
it doesn't
Field trip.
sink in, right?
Yes.
And so how do we get, and then you talk about financial, schools are struggling with transportation, right? And things like that. Not only finding drivers, but the cost. The cost, when I started in education, for me to get a bus for the day for what it is now, I'm $1,000 a trip, right? To
Yeah.
take them anywhere outside of the Saginaw region. So those things schools do need help with to get that exposure, but there has to be more than just the counselor available because it's not going to happen. No ill will on them. Our counselors are amazing and they are doing a terrific job, but what's being asked of them in the school is not necessarily counseling, right? It's not necessarily career development and career awareness and helping students find their path. There's too many other things that are now required through education for that role to do. And so we need businesses to step in, but that means that we need to have our educational leaders make those decisions, right? It's such a two-way street. We need our leaders in our local school districts to take the time to bring in our business partners so we can get that awareness. How do we get kids to take a tour over here, and how do we make it fun, and how do we make it relative? And Well, we make it relative by maybe now we add in these lessons that are aligned with that. Yeah, I'm teaching math this day anyway, but maybe it's related to a production question that's troubling a local company, and we make it relevant for them. Oh, did you like that? Hey, who liked going through that exercise or building that project? Great. Now let's take anybody that wants to or interested, and let's bring them over to a local facility, and this is exactly what you were doing in class. Thinking like that. As far as how we look at education differently.
It's kind of funny. Jordan, soon to be president of Amigo here shortly, I used to be upstairs working, and sure as enough, he'd bring around a group of people.
We had one yesterday.
There you
We
go,
had-
kids.
yeah.
And you know what's funny is, as an older employee, you go, "Oh, isn't that kind of really cool?" It's a bigger deal than that. When Tim, you mentioned, I mean, here I am, 60 years old, and I feel I'm pretty social, right? Kids today aren't social, right?
not.
If you look at somebody my age and they look at these kids and go, "Oh, they're interested in cell phone, texting, and TikTok," right? They don't even talk to them anymore. That's a critical piece
Yes.
that I, at my age, take for granted, because I'll talk to anybody,
Right.
and I enjoy it. But you're 100% correct. All I'm thinking is, we're looking at welding. No, you make a good point. You got to be able to talk to somebody.
Right.
My kids ask me all the time. Yeah, they're older kids, but it's like I'm at a restaurant and I'm talking to the waitress or the waiter,
Always.
and I get their name, I get everything. I enjoy that. But maybe that's kind of why I'm in sales, right?
Right.
But the social side of it is a critical piece that you just don't know.
And there's career paths that don't have to have the social side of it. I mean, I call them buzzword, style careers, like right now, like cybersecurity is a big one, and it's got a big need. Don't get me wrong, but my kids all wanted to be a YouTuber at some point, or I'm gonna write code for video games and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's fine with my kids. I try to preach, like, find something you love and figure out how to make a living at it.
Yes.
And so I got a daughter that was in the sports world and loves hockey, and she got a sports management degree, and she's working for a hockey team in Colorado. Good, nailed it. Second kid's heading down the welding path. He seems to want to go that way. Then I've got my third kid coming up that's definitely engineering mindset, super whiz at math, everything else. But I'm like, is that what you want to do? I don't know. I don't know.
He needs some work-based learning.
Well, that's part of it. Going back to what you were saying with the counseling, they take like these placement tests in high school, right? And they get the results.
Yeah, marine biologist.
Right.
Great.
But then what?
Where at? Where am I going to go? Where?
Exactly. How do they apply that? How do they, do anything else? And I think the CTE program's obviously giving that exposure to those kids. Again, that'd be a perfect one, like for my son, if like to go to SEC and try the engineering thing. You might be like, I don't want to do this.
Exactly.
Great. Do that before you're 3, 4, or 5 years into college. If you're going to look at your life as ROI, which we all should, and stuff, then don't go wait to figure it out. If you can try to at least break the code a little bit along the way. I mean,
The problem with that, Tim, is it happens fast.
It does.
Sure does.
I mean, you got to be on it.
It does.
And when you guys talk about all this, I think it's great. I think what I've taken out of this whole podcast is that it needs to be at a younger age. And if you're telling
Absolutely.
people at 4th, 5th, 6th grade, I mean, it's just planting a seed, right?
Kindergarten. They can do a
Yeah.
lot of things with
Yeah.
pretend play and Legos. Legos were my favorite tool when I taught elementary, because they had so many things in there that aligned with careers, and they can build those skills, and it should start from day one.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, kids are. I always go back to my mechanical mindset and everything else. I had a guy down the street. His friends and I were his son and I were friends, but he was a teacher, and he just saw that Jeff and I were both kind of mechanical people. So he'd go to garage sales and buy lawnmowers that didn't work, and set us loose in the garage with his toolbox. He's like, take it apart, and we hours. Maybe it was just trying to occupy us. I don't know, but for hours, we would take this thing apart. And I remember the first time we got it all into a box, and he's like, all right, I'll put it back together. And we're like, well, you didn't say that. Take it apart. But he was feeding into what he saw in us of wanting to, I was that kid that pushed the toaster down on the toast and just look at it like, how's it work? Like, what's going on? And wanting to see how the spring mechanism came up and things like that. So he'd recognize that in me, and how do I feed into that? And I think that's what a lot of the career technical centers do is exactly that. Is there's a kid with an interest, how do I feed the interest and see if it, not only make it stick, but you can apply it earlier. Like, I think it's okay if a kid goes into a program and doesn't love it, and
Absolutely.
figures it out, and
Very
then
valuable.
pivot
One of the
to
best
something
things,
else, right? Yeah, instead of figuring it out later. But
I'm glad that that he went to a garage sale to buy lawnmowers because my
All right.
son, when he was like 8 years old, used to take our actual lawnmower. Luckily, he was pretty mechanical, kind of amazing. But I was like, uh-oh.
You needed to teach him how to mow the lawn.
He does that too now, but at 8.
Well, I think this has been very insightful, great conversation. I guess my last question would be to kind of round things out. If somebody, say student or employer, wants to learn more and how to get involved, how would you recommend to do so?
So from Career and Technical Education, you certainly can reach out to your local career and education district representative. So Josh covers Bay and Arenac County. Each county has a different CPED director, and they can tell you which programs are available, where they're located, how to get enrolled.
It's perfect. It's fantastic. Any last closing remarks for anyone that you want to share before we say goodbye?
I will say this, there's a saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. This was very informative. I mean, it really was. I kind of wish now I had young kids.
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden, younger kids, because now you could bring them up. Because what Tim had mentioned was student debt, and obviously if you watch the news, whether you want to or you don't, whatever you have to do, I mean, student debt's a big deal.
Sure is.
And I'm going to tell you, I had a son that got a 4-year degree in chemistry. Then he got a master's in psychology, and then after he's all in this deal, right? He says, I wonder if I should have got into a trade. And I said, Spence, this ship has sailed. There's way too much cash spent, and it has to be paid back. And he's 27 years old now. Not that he can't change that, but I mean, that was a real life gig. Like it's like we didn't really talk about that, and we should have. And I feel bad now.
Andy worked for me in production for a while.
Yes, he did.
Well, if he's got a chemistry degree, send him my way.
I think a big takeaway is the idea that education and business aren't two separate entities. And I think when I was going to school, I think back to my elementary, middle school, and high school experience. I don't think we mentioned business and companies one time, right? You didn't even think about it. And I think that companies are growing and going. And I know there's we donate and sponsor golf outings and we do stuff like that. But to really think about, we're all the same, right? You can't have one without the other together. So just the idea that it's a partnership, and thinking about it in a different light than we had for years is that, all right, well, you do school and then you go to business, right? Or you do school and then you go to your career, and then really figuring out, no, we have to be working together to figure out all of these things to make sure students have the best outlook.
Yeah, CTE ushers in future forward thinking. We need that as employers, and kids need that because CTE is so much more than just learning how to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, it really addresses the whole child imperative. And don't forget, secondary CTE exists at our community colleges as well. So Delta College is also has a large CTE department.
So if Spencer does want to go back to school, that's
There you go.
That's
Fantastic.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We certainly appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, appreciate you.
Boy, I tell you what, Samantha, going into this, I kind of wondered, where is this going to go with all the CTE and their careers and the young kids and that? And I was really enlightened. I mean, it was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know if anyone who is listening wants to learn more, Josh did say after our recording, please reach out to him. He's more than willing and welcoming to do tours and to educate our local community. And also for our listeners who maybe are tuning in from outside of the Saginaw community, I would encourage them to look at local CTE programs within their community,
Right.
Because they're all over. It's definitely
They said it was
not Saginaw.
countywide, and everybody's got
I
every
think
state's got a
I think
county.
it's nationwide. I think there's pocketed areas everywhere.
Well, oh, no. Yeah, I get that, but it's by county.
Right.
And there's, like I say, counties are nationwide.
Got
That's a
it.
good point.
Yes, wonderful. Well, so a huge thank you, of course, to our guests who
Of
joined
course.
us.
And then are we, now that we're kind of going this way, should we open it up if somebody has something that they want us to talk about?
Absolutely.
And come on our
I
podcast?
would encourage that. I think
That'd be fun.
anyone who has been listening and wants to learn more, we are always welcoming content information. We want to hear what you're interested in and if you want to be a guest. So
Most definitely.
if that's the case,
Yeah.
please feel free to reach out to carts@myamigo.com. You can always visit our website as well at myamigo.com. If you're looking specifically for our industrial product,
Well, you know, it's funny, and I know it wasn't really sales driven, but we do offer a fantastic program, which is a 14-day on-site demo program. And it allows any business to try our product to see if it's going to work. And if it works, great, we got a win. If it doesn't work, we load up and we move on to the next one. So I would encourage anybody that kind of sees what we do and says, hey, you know what, even though this episode wasn't about that, if you're looking to move things differently, people and products, we can do it.
Yep.
And it's non-obligation.
So feel free to reach out at
Exactly.
carts@myamigo.com or visit our website, myamigo.com/industrial to learn more.
I think this has been a big day.
I know. We're ready
back
for
at
happy
it.
hour.
We're back at it.
at it. All right. Until next time, keep it
rolling.